Hi, this is Mary Cupp, and this is my population level health education intervention project for nursing 447. Introduction. The population area that I chose was Buena Park in the 90621 area code. They are known to have a 19.5% of poverty level. And during my windshield survey, I found 4 health-related problems and issues for the underserved community, and it was more of the homeless population. One of the 4 were substance abuse, increased risk of infections due to, lack of resources, poor nutrition, particularly malnutrition, and chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or difficulty in maintaining proper chronic illness. Background and significance. The 4 health-related issues or problems to the community were, again, substance abuse. It's both a cause and a result of homelessness. 38% of homeless people were dependent on alcohol, and 26% abused other drugs, according to the National Coalition of Homeless 2009. The second health risk factor that I identified during the windshield survey was risk for infection. Again, because the homeless population often lack resources and means for proper hygiene. Also, nutrition was definitely a issue with the uncertainty of when the next meal will be, and not only the next meal, but the quality of meal that they'll get. In 2015, 12.7%, nearly 15.8 million households are food insecure, and 5% of the U.S. households, 6.3 million households, were very low food security, according to the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Smoking also was a big factor that the homeless population partook. According to the National Coalition for the Homeless in 2017, the prevalence of smoking is more than 3 times higher among the homeless than in general population. Healthy People 2020 objectives that I will address for the educational intervention. Substance abuse was one, to protect the health and safety and quality of life for all, especially in children. Also to prevent, reduce, and ultimately eliminate healthcare-associated infections. This infection-related objective is more so for the hospital-acquired infections. I didn't see anything particularly geared to the homeless population. So the 2 objectives that I chose to do my teachings on were nutrition, how to obtain a well-balanced diet, and other resources for the underserved population to utilize. The Healthy People 2020 objectives were to promote health and reduce chronic disease risks through the consumption of healthy diets and achievement and maintenance of healthy body weights. And lastly is to reduce cigarette smoking by adults. And the chronic illness that I had chosen to present to this population was COPD. Needs assessment. How I determined to do my teachings on was based on the stakeholders, both population stakeholders and key stakeholders, identified homelessness as being a key factor for secondary health disparities. Excuse me. Melanie is a community relations personnel for the Salvation Army, and she had identified to me that drug abuse among the homeless was mostly seen, and most disparity that she deals with. Also, Sue Lynn is a development associate for Giving Children Hope. She identified obesity and nutrition was a big issue due to, lack of resources. They are able to, get more bang for their buck at like a fast food place. So obesity was an issue, not only for the children, but for the families as well. Alan is head of security for First Southern Baptist Church. And First Southern Baptist Church is the church I chose to do my teachings on. He said that they provide 2 meals a day, breakfast and dinner, and they also hold Alcohol Anonymous every Wednesdays. And I had the opportunity to participate in Alcohols Anonymous and kind of observe the population here. Theoretical framework and needs assessment. The pre-seed proceed model helped me guide my project in identifying and developing an educational plan for nutrition and for COPD and smoking. The model guided my project in formulating smoking educations and interventions. And one thing that I asked myself is, what can I teach? What can I teach and provide this population that would they most benefit from? And I thought that they can most benefit from more knowledge on available resources for food, and not only good resources, but good nutrition. So I introduced the food plate. And because a social determinant of health is homelessness, for this homeless population, I gave information on how to manage chronic illness due to low health literacy, and I elaborated on COPD. Issues. Barriers for this population was definitely lack of financial means. There's a little bit of health literacy issues for this population. Not all homeless personnel were low health literacy, but a majority of them. Some had low motivation for dealing with chronic disease, and also there was an issue of transportation. Some assets that this population and underserved population had was there's a few local community resources. I think I had found a clinic nearby. There's also some support groups that they can partake in, especially for smoking cessation. And there was also a free clinic, maybe not too far, a mile away from the church. Interventions. The purpose of the intervention was to address nutritional resources. I elaborated on why nutrition was important and how to achieve a proper nutrition, and challenges for the underserved community. Again, a challenge for them was economic resources, and I also had provided them a list of resources such as soup kitchens and free clinics, other places that they can get a free meal especially for lunch, since the church provided only breakfast and dinner. Uh, For a COPD, again, I mentioned Healthy People 2020 objectives was to decrease the smoking population. And I elaborated on what is COPD, its pathology, pathophysiology, a quick overview of pathophysiology, and the precautionary measures, which was mostly smoking cessation, and treatments. Mostly I elaborated on medications, breathing treatments or inhalers to do good oral care. And I also provided a smoking cessation list. There were a few free clinics nearby, some support groups that I had provided on a form. One smoking cessation program that I didn't know was available was from CVS, their Minute Clinic. They have a really good program for this population to utilize. Budget. While I was interviewing and meeting with my stakeholder before I had presented to the class, he said that I had a projector available and something to present my PowerPoints on. However, when I showed up, there was none of these materials, and I had to go off of my my laptop. So that made it a little difficult. There was also my own personal transportation. I live in Arizona, so I flew to California to do my health teachings. And also the personnel at the shelter were unpaid volunteers. So the budget for this project was at minimal cost. Project evaluation and outcome. My goal for this project and objectives was for this population to able to verbalize resources and locations of places to achieve and obtain free balanced meals appropriate for nutritional body requirements. Also to verbalize understanding of risk for continuation of smoking habits and verbalize the benefits of smoking cessation. Measure of success or failure. Express the importance of a well-balanced diet. Utilize other resources available to fill in meal gaps. And for smoking, a population education also verbalize barriers to quit smoking and other resources to utilize for a better support system. Results and conclusion. I did my intervention November 29th during mealtime. It was about 5 o'clock at the church, and I provided my teachings on nutrition and COPD. I found out there weren't very many resources available locally. The nearest soup kitchen was, I think, in Santa Ana or Costa Mesa, and there was also Newport Beach. While I was doing my nutrition teaching, I had a comment from one of the persons there that they'd rather be given money than a free meal. And so I just said, you know, I understand that money is really hard to come by, but there are resources out there so you don't, you know, so that money isn't needed. And I also had a person, however, was highly interested in where the soup kitchen was in Costa Mesa. Apparently, he had a little bit of transportation, but Costa Mesa is quite a ways from Buena Park. Suggestions for COPD project. I would first start off with stressing that my teaching is not intended to tell them how to live their life. I kind of got a comment about, COPD and smoking cessation. So I just mentioned, next time I will, again, it's not intended to force them to not smoke and tell them how to live their life, but more so to give them the knowledge and resources for them. So when they are ready to quit, they have this information for them. Thank you so much. I learned a great deal doing this project. Thank you. Have a great evening.